Okay, YouTube people and KPCA people, this is the Midnight Skeptic, and it is Saturday, the 27th, and there's some technical difficulties here at my well-appointed recording studio here. Um, my audio engineer, video engineer, Dennis, down in Tiburon, is not going to be able to come up to help me. The problem is I can't hear myself through my headphones. And so I'm just going to plow ahead and do this as he said I could. And everything is being recorded audioly and visually. So with that, I'm going to play my play-in music. Bar right now, and it is being
You are
recorded.
listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates.
Okay, I think by looking at the green bar here, I can tell that the play-in music is over and the pre-recorded announcements are over. This is the Midnight Skeptic, and it's show number 17, and on KPCA LP 103.3 FM Petaluma, California. It's going to be broadcast this Sunday night, the 28th, at 9 o'clock p.m., our usual time. And like I say, this is Saturday now, the 27th, that I'm recording this. Or, boy, I hope this is being recorded, because I'm going to download this to PCA's Dropbox. And I'm also going to put this up on YouTube. So I hope this isn't a major screw-up. Dennis says that the sound and the images are going to be going out here. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go through my shout-outs as usual. A new listener / viewer, Art Kuznets, here in Petaluma, California. He's a member of the B'nai Israel congregation here in Petaluma. My brother Brandon and his wife Mina, and down in Santan Valley, Arizona, and especially their niece, or my niece, their daughter, my niece, Andrea, who's a nurse down there in some hospital in the Santan Valley area. Boy, I wish that she takes care of herself, wears her PPE, and has been able to get a COVID shot. I myself am now scheduled to get my COVID shot this afternoon at 4 o'clock here at the Petaluma Kaiser facility. I went in yesterday and got my eyes checked, and I'm going to need cataract surgery. Boy, I'm not looking forward to that, but needs to be done so I can actually see what the hell I'm doing here. Okay, Stan Gustafson and his wife Kathy down in Pacifica. He listens in, and there's going to be a special little segment on nuclear power, which he is all for, and his 3 kids are not, I understand. They're part of the people out there that freak out about the very mention of nuclear power, because they, in their minds, think about 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima, and yes, accidents do happen, But in the big picture, nuclear is very, very much safer, especially the modern generations of nuclear power plants, which I'll be talking about a little later in the show. So, Stan, that bit is going to be for you. And then Rich and Kathy Berger out in Sebastopol, they should be able to tune in to the 103.3 FM on Sunday night, but maybe they watch the YouTube version of this exercise in blathering on, I guess you could call it. The East Coast listeners, especially Geraldine Goldfinger out in, oh God, I forget the name of the town, on the Connecticut side of Long Island. Anyway, okay. And Uncle Michael and Aunt Debbie, Herr Doctor David Rubin in the Raleigh-Durham area. Again, let me encourage my listeners out there, my tens of thousands of listeners out there, to Google David Rubin Painting, all one word, .com. He's a very accomplished painter now, and coffee sip time. And he paints as well as creates found items. What do you call those things? You put them together, 3D collages, I guess. That would describe them well enough. Okay, let's see. Nelson and Alice Lydell down in Sarasota, Florida. Retired U.S. Public Health Service officer. He sends along tidbits of knowledge that sometimes I cover them, sometimes not. But he, as it turns out, his specialty was researching the effectiveness of breathing apparatuses, including the N95 masks that we all should be wearing in this day and age, and we should be wearing for a while longer until this COVID-19 virus gets beaten down, and we will beat it down eventually. Despite the Trumpers' resistance to doing anything that... anyway, I don't want to get into that. Okay, Stockton, Kathy Clark, and then up in Reno, her sister Chanda, my first cousins. They're more like my sisters because we were all raised together, more or less, when we were growing up. Okay, the Sonora crowd, Bob and Sandy Fisher, and Brad and Martha. And Brad, I'm going to be mentioning Weird Science, the movie, thinking about you, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But Martha up in Sonora is a nurse herself, and please, Martha, wear your PPEs, and I hope you've been able to get your COVID shot. And she's taking care of elderly residents up there. She's a CNA, certified nursing assistant, and okay, and an ex-Sonora person, Rosie Lopez Negrete, down in Mexico City. Oh, Jesus, the Midnight Skeptic has gone international. I think I have a listener now and then in Australia, believe it or not, because my nephew's wife originally is from Australia, and somehow the word about this program, I guess that's what we can call it, has filtered over to the Aussies. But okay, Central America, Australia. I don't have any Asian listeners that I know of. My next goal is to collect a few listeners over in Europe. The most likely person that I might touch over there is Scotland, because my room renter here in the house, Nick Brown, is originally from Scotland, and so he still has connections over there. Okay, let's see. Sonora group. Okay, Darrell Larson, the Bronco rider. He was in our class, and Darrell, I hope all of your broken bones have healed by now. Jesus, it's been 35, 40 years. I hope they've all healed up by now. The wages of a rodeo guy. That's what happens when you choose that sport. And he was pretty good at it. Okay, Martha Brown, Darrell. Judy May and Leonidas Maciel, occasionally they tune in. They're the Sonora people. Tim Conrad, who was a Sonora person in our high school class up there, he is now living in Petaluma down here and is an exceedingly good photographer. He posts some of his beautiful photos on Facebook now and then. And some of his framed pictures are galleryized. I guess that's a word. Mickey Huff. Okay, he lives here in Petaluma, but he's a history professor over at Diablo Valley College, and he's kind of the godfather of Project Censored. And Project Censored has its own radio show. My son Dennis was their audio producer for a while, and until Mickey got all the equipment that he needs into his own house. Yeah, kind of like what I'm doing here, except his equipment is more elaborate than mine is. Anyway, once a year, Project Censored comes out with a book that collates all of the stories, news, briefs, issues that have not been adequately or rightly covered by the mainstream media. And I am not a enemy of the mainstream media. I personally believe that Fox News can just, go to hell. Okay. Josie Padilla down in Mill Valley, she listens now and then, and she is an acquaintance from way, way back. We dated for a while in the mid-70s, and then she went on with her life, I went on with my life, and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Enough of the shout-outs. What I want to do is memorialize to a quick degree the death of Lawrence Ferlinghetti. He died at the age of 101 in his apartment here in San Francisco, and he was the owner and of City Lights Books. They're right on the corner of Columbus and Broadway. Back in the late 50s, he published Allen Ginsberg's lengthy poem called Howl. I think the book was actually called Howl and Other Poems by Allen Ginsberg. And he was arrested for that. Back in the uptight 50s, where censorship was the norm. Another coffee break. Anyway, he was found innocent, and he went on to publish many other works. He's not a major publishing house, but the beat writers of the era would get their works published at City Lights Publishing. And Jack Kerouac was not published by City Lights Publishing. He may have had a few small works published by them, but Jack Kerouac's On the Road in particular was published by some publisher from back east, I think in New York. Anyway, here in Petaluma, 1958, Howl was published. In 2008, I put together at the Phoenix Theater, which is a kind of a hangout for alternative teens here. It was an old vaudeville theater, and it showed movies for a while, but it quit doing that in the early 70s, and it was just Oh, alternative teen hangout. What can you say? But anyway, I got to be friends with the manager of it, Tom Gaffey, and it's kind of a shout out to him. He doesn't listen to this. I'm not even sure that he realizes that it's on. The KPCA studios are about 2 blocks away from the Phoenix Theater. But anyway, okay, in the year 2008, I organized a reading of the poem Howl, and it was on a Saturday. And I was in my tutoring phase, private tutoring phase. I mean, I was working other places because, life is what happens to you when you're making other plans. I enjoyed private tutoring and working with teens. But you have to pay the rent. You have to eat. And I have kids growing up, and my wife, Patty, who also tutored along with me. We had an afternoon session beginning at 2 to 4. And it was teens from Petaluma High School, Casa Grande High School, and St. Vincent's High School, which is a small Catholic school here in Petaluma. We had readers from all 3 of them that took turns. I printed out the poem and blew up the pages so they could see it up at the microphone, because inside the Phoenix Theater, it's rather, I like the place, but it's rather dark and dank, and it's hard to see. So I blew up the size of these pages, and each of the kids from the 3 high schools, I gave them a page. Okay, you read this, and then after he's done, you, Susie, read this, and so it came off really well. Okay, at 4 o'clock, we took an hour's break and started the adult evening version of it, because honestly, Howl is a bit raunchy in places. That's why Lawrence Ferlinghetti was arrested for publishing this thing. It violated the mores of that era. Anyway, the adults took their turns reading it similarly, and we were donated a keg of beer from the Lagunitas Brewery, and they were just kind of not that far along at that time. They've since gone on to become the preeminent craft brewer, I guess, in the nation. They're 3rd or 4th biggest. Anyway, and then we had somebody donate some wine, and so we had beer wine, and we were drinking it up. And there was a professor from Sonoma State that came and gave a talk about Allen Ginsberg and the Beat movement after the reading of the poem was over. So a good time was had by all. Anyway, okay, so that's Lawrence Ferlinghetti. May he rest in peace. He was a good man. Nobody who met him disliked him. He was a very good guy and lived in his apartment up there in North Beach. Okay, all right, enough of that. In Lincoln, Nebraska, they are the first city in Nebraska, which is kind of, I don't know, in the heart of the Bible Belt. They passed a city ordinance by a 5-1 vote to outlaw conversion therapy, which is a total bullpucky way for Christians to try to convert gays, queer youth, to straight youth. Okay. First of all, there's nothing wrong with being gay or being queer. However, Christians, in their less than infinite wisdom, think that there's only 2 possibilities for people to be. And I've gone over this on previous shows too. That congresswoman from Georgia, oh God, what's her name? Marjorie Taylor Greene slapped up this sign on her office door saying, "There are only two sexes. Trust the science." And, Jesus. Anyway, I've devoted almost an entire show to Dr. Deborah So's book, The End of Gender. She is a scientist, a neuroscientist, and there are, in fact, only two sexes. Okay, gender and sex are quite often confused with each other. They're not the same. Your sex is determined by the coming together of two different gametes, the female egg and the male sperm. The male sperm can either have an XY chromosome or 2X chromosomes. And the female egg always has two X's. There are no Y chromosomes in a female egg ever. So an XX chromosome, when the blastocyst gets, where the egg gets fertilized, I think at that time it's called a blastocyst. I'm going way back in my biology, but double X is female, XY is male. Okay, I don't want to go into this whole thing, but what determines who you're attracted to sexually is, to a large extent, the amount of testosterone in utero. When a male fetus, developing male fetus, XY, begins developing in utero, after about the 6th or 7th week, then testes develop, and they start cranking out testosterone. Okay, the more testosterone that the fetus is exposed to, the more male it will become. And there are other sources of testosterone in the female uterus, female that's pregnant. She herself gives off some testosterone, and younger females tend to give out a bit more, and overweight females tend to give out a bit more testosterone. Anyway, a fetus that's been exposed to a lot of testosterone in utero becomes, in addition to being male, will be attracted to females. Okay. Well, what about the female fetus? If there's the XX female fetus, if they are not exposed to a lot of testosterone and they don't have the testes in the fetus to crank it out, they will become femaleized, I guess, in the brain and in their sexual organs. However, there are, a lack of testosterone means the female fetus will be attracted to males. Okay, that is according to Christianity, the normal, quote unquote, way things should go. God's great plan. Okay, well, there are differences. I've gone into this in previous shows, so I'm not going to dwell on it here. The thing is, Christian conversion camps have sprouted up in the Bible Belt. Okay, another coffee drink here. Excuse me. This city council law that was voted in Lincoln, Nebraska, 5-1, it bars counselors, psychiatrists, and therapists from seeking to change the sexual orientation of a minor, less than 18. Opponents, which are invariably Christian fundamentalist, evangelical, right-wing Trump followers, argue that the city council move is a form of, and this is a quote, religious discrimination. And it infringes on freedom of speech of therapists and parents. Okay. In November, a federal court struck down conversion therapy bans in Florida cities. Nebraska State Senate Bill LB 167 is now, as we speak, being argued. It would ban conversion therapy statewide, so all of Nebraska. I hope it passes. Okay, Glenn Smith, GLENN SMITH, director of Camp Witness Bible Conference Association, said that the bill puts his organization at risk. Well, he's going to lose some money because, kids can't go to his Bible camp anymore. Okay, he has a financial dog in the fight, and could prohibit us from teaching what we believe is the biblical view of human sexuality to kids who pay to come. Now, obviously, it's not the kids that are paying, it's the parents, or maybe they're sponsored by their local church or something. It's not the kids who pay, although that is exactly what he said. As long as I'm going after Christians here, and not all Christians, the fundamentalist, evangelical, right-wing crazies out there, they are also claiming that, first of all, they were the vanguard of the anti-gay marriage movement in this country, which fortunately has gone the way of all idiocies. Florists and bakers, one guy, baker in Colorado, refused to bake cakes for gay couples. Okay, he claimed that if he was going to be forced to bake cakes for gay couples, which would be a violation of his religious beliefs. And there was a florist down in Texas who also claimed forcing her to have floral arrangements for gay weddings would violate her religious convictions. I don't see the difference between a lunch counter, a Woolworth's lunch counter back in South Carolina, I think it was Greenville, I think so, where they would not serve blacks. Now we're going way back in the 60s, late 50s, 60s, because it violated their religious beliefs of white supremacy. And, this whole Supreme Court case, Loving versus Virginia. Well, Virginia had anti-miscegenation laws, and Loving versus Virginia was decided in, I think, 1967, if I'm not correct. Okay, all of my thousands of listeners out there, correct me if I'm wrong, please. Okay. Anyway, one of the arguments for anti-miscegenation laws was religious beliefs that the white race and the black race, and I assume the Asian race as well, should be kept separate because it would be a violation of God's great plan to mix the races. Okay. Anyhow, 3 cheers for the city of Lincoln, Nebraska, and I hope that this bill, LB 167, passes through the Nebraska State Legislature. I'll keep my fingers crossed. I won't go around until the next Midnight Skeptic show with my fingers crossed like this, but you get the idea. Okay, and Stan Gustafson, this is for you if you're listening. Despite the few occasional accidents, nuclear power remains safer on the whole than any other large-scale fossil fueling power source in human history. And this is from the World Nuclear Association, and I guess they may be a bit prejudiced about this, but it's an article entitled "The Safety of Nuclear Power Reactors," and it was December of 2020. If you Google the World Nuclear Association and then look for this article, it'll come up in its entirety. But Bill Gates's Breakthrough Energy, okay, that's a organization that he helped found in 2015. One of the things that they do, in addition to clean energy like solar and wind, they're a strong advocate for nuclear energy. And he has just come out with a book, Bill Gates did, How to Avoid Climate Disaster. Okay, I would urge all of my listeners out there to go out and get this book. And we want to encourage Bill Gates and all of his billions of dollars to keep doing what he's doing. I really like the guy. Okay, let's see. What did I say here? Okay, this was a quote from the World Nuclear Association. Despite the few occasional accidents, nuclear power remains safer on the whole than any other large-scale power source in human history. Okay, this newly confirmed Energy Secretary, Jennifer Granholm, she was the ex-governor of Wisconsin or Minnesota? Yeah, I'm not exactly certain. She is totally on board with nuclear energy now. And she has a number of nuclear physicists as her advisors. His name escapes me right now, but in the Obama administration, we used to have an actual nuclear physicist as our energy secretary. I don't know, a brain freeze. Okay, I can't remember the guy's name, but okay, let's go to this. Okay. In 2007, an engineer at Oregon State University named Jose Reyes began to resurrect a nuclear reactor technology, by imagining a reactor that would be very, very different. Okay, he has created a technology that can generate power more safely at a fraction of the price. Last August, 2020, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission issued a final safety report for Reyes's design, recommending its certification. Okay. The first reactor could begin as soon as 2025. Okay, now he had his plans. Time check here. Ooh, half hour has gone by already. Jeez, where does time go when you're having fun? Okay, his nuclear reactor designs are quite small in comparison. I mean, the physical size of these things is quite small compared to other nuclear reactors. And they are bathed in an internal sleeve of water. And water does two things in a nuclear reactor. One, it cools it off, because the whole point of a nuclear reactor is for the nuclear fission, which releases energy, to heat up the water, which in turn creates steam, which in turn turns turbines, which powers a generator. Coffee break again. Okay. Where was I? Okay. After a decade of working at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in 1987, Reyes went to teach at Oregon State University, where he built a model of the Trojan plants. That was the name of a plant up in Oregon. Plant's reactor, scaling down its pipes and chambers to examine what might happen if its cooling pumps failed. Okay. After he presented his findings at a conference, Westinghouse, at that time, 87, one of the... lost my place. Damn it. Westinghouse, then one of the biggest builders of nuclear reactors, tapped Jose Reyes, to analyze its technology. Under his lead, Oregon State eventually became what he calls the Consumer Protection Safety Commission for the nuclear industry. And he's still up there. And his design... I promised all my tens of thousands of listeners that I would be more organized for this show, because the last show before this was a bit disjointed. Well, getting yourself organized is much easier said than done. Okay. Reyes. Okay, we're talking about Jose Reyes, the Oregon State guy, nuclear guy. Also shrank the reactor by a lot. His company that he started also was called NuSafe, capital N-U, capital S-C-A-L-E. Did I say NuSafe? No. NuScale is the name of the company. Reactor's components will be housed in a shell that is just 76 feet tall, twice the height of a typical telephone pole, and 15 feet wide. Now, that may sound big to you out there, but compared to other nuclear reactors, it's quite small. More than 100 of these shells could be packed inside of a conventional nuclear reactor's containment building. I told you that there's two things that water does inside a nuclear reactor. One is it's a source of steam that turns a turbine, and you got to heat the water to make that. Okay, the other function of water is to cool it down so that it won't begin melting. Okay. Let's see. The state of Utah is a state that is quite on board with nuclear power. They are not afraid of these new sources of energy. Now, as part of his $2 trillion climate plan, President Biden is calling for a federal research agency that would pursue carbon-free energy sources, including small reactors, which is what the new source is. They are small nuclear reactors. Now, his is not the only company that's making this new fifth-generation nuclear reactors. There are other companies that see the potential of this. For the YouTube people, I'm going to hold this up right quick. And it is a bar graph I'm holding up for non-fossil fuel energy sources. Okay, nuclear, in this country, nuclear is about 55% of our quote-unquote clean energy creation. Wind is about 20%. Hydroelectric is another 20% roughly. Solar is about 5%. Okay, those are all of the ones that we want to really concentrate on in this country to meet our energy sources so that we can finally, once and for all, get the hell off of coal. And I've said this before in previous shows, that I feel sorry for all of the coal miners back in eastern Kentucky and West Virginia and parts of Pennsylvania that stand to lose their jobs when all of these coal mines shut down. And I'm sorry for their plight, and they should be taken care of monetarily and mainly health-wise, because black lung disease is a horrible thing to have. And the life expectancy of a coal miner who has been a career coal miner is about 7 years. 7 years less is what I've read in life expectancy than other people in this country. Okay, so enough of that. In California, okay, speaking of energy, Scott Wiener's Senate bill, it's called Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, would ban fracking in California by 2027. Well, hopefully we can ban fracking a lot before that. That's only 6 years away. I mean, not only 6, it's just all the way 6 years away. We need fracking bans to come on into law way before that. And it's going to put a carbon price on fossil fuel production and distribution. And the dividends of this carbon tax that is in Scott Wiener's bill, the money will go back to the American people. Okay, specifically mentioned are people of minority communities that are the biggest sufferers of pollution, and it's part of environmental justice, I guess you can use that term. Disposal wells, fracking disposal wells, were more than 2 times as common in minority living areas. Believe me, you're not going to see any fracking disposal wells in Los Gatos Hills or Hillsboro or any of the wealthy enclaves. So, okay. Okay, enough of the energy ranting and raving. Okay. Brad Fisher, if you're listening to this, this is for you. I did last show, a good deal of the show concerned itself with movie making, the male gaze, and male fantasies. And I've said before that most movies are made by male producers, directors, cinematographers, and blah, blah, blah. And their mindset is, generally speaking, that women who they objectify and sexualize can be had with persistence. Okay. The male gaze is concerning with camera angles and camera shots of women's legs, their breasts, their butts, what guys, especially the juvenile movie makers that we have making most of the movies, what they like to look at. Okay. And included in this male gaze thing is the gaze of the main character in the movie. He looks at women, the women lead in the movies, in the same way as the producer, director, so on and so on. And the third prong to this 3-pronged male gaze thing is the audience. And I've said before that most movies in general are attended by guys. Now, I know that that's not entirely true because guys bring their dates and girls on their own go to see movies too. But movies with the male gaze are being made for other men to watch. Okay. And I listed a number of movies that were utilized the trope born sexy yesterday, meaning women were literally created in some of these movies. They're science fiction, basically. The Tron 4 movie was one example I gave. And sometimes these innocent, unknowing women are like found out in the wild, like Splash. It was a mermaid come to life, and Tom Hanks's responsibility was to teach her the proper way of relating to men. Okay, Brad Fisher sent me a message that I should check out Weird Science. I had never seen this movie before, and so I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched clips of it, but it was made in 1985, and it's a John Hughes movie. That's the guy that made Pretty in Pink and what are some of the other movies? Mid-'80s teen movies. And Anthony Michael Hall was one of his actors that he used quite frequently. In fact, Anthony Michael Hall is the lead character in this movie, Weird Science. And it's the trope where the nerds are bullied by the jocks, and the nerds lust after the cheerleaders. This is a tired old trope. And, teen guys, as imagined by John Hughes, this is the way they are. They get bowled over in a fit of desire for the cheerleaders. Okay. And I want to say that back in my own teen years, I was a bit affected by that as well. I was not immune to this, and I lusted after the cheerleaders myself. And because I wasn't mature enough to appreciate girls that were not of that, social strata, I guess. Okay. Okay, back to Weird Science. They literally create their own woman, and she was not another teenage girl that they created. She was, I guess, in the movie, she looked like she was about 22, 23. She was, the actress was Kelly LeBrock, and she was a model, and I've never seen her in anything else. I guess John Hughes cast her in this role as this voluptuous, woman that Anthony Michael Hall and the other kid, Ian Mitchell Smith, and I've never seen him in anything else either. Anyway, they both, in a Frankenstein-like method, created this woman. Computers were just coming into their own back in those days, and they tapped into a power source. Man, okay. Anyway, lightning and clouds go off, and out of that emerges this this gorgeous woman, good body and everything, and she sort of gives them an air of coolness that they didn't have, that the jocks really didn't have. And of course, the cheerleaders fall for Anthony Michael Hall and Ian Mitchell Smith. Anyway, they created a virtual woman, the perfect dream woman with magical powers, and suddenly they throw parties that every kid in school wants to go to, and they have a car, a great car at that time. Anyway, so this is not exactly from the trope of born yesterday. Oh God, born innocent yesterday, because she's not an innocent little thing that have to be taught how to love by Anthony Michael Hall and his friend. But it's kind of a semi tropey movie like that. Okay. Okay, I want to get into this briefly. The male gaze in movies. Okay, Brad Fisher. Okay, I mentioned Brad Fisher. Thank you, Brad, for relaying that to me. Stalking for love, that trope. Okay, let me assure you that in almost all cases, girls don't like to be stalked, guys. I realize that guys like to think of themselves as worthy of being loved, whether the girl of your dreams loves you or not. I mean, it's not a fact that if you just keep at it and keep at it and keep at it, showing up in her bedroom, climbing through her window or whatever, that eventually she will come around. That's the fantasy of a lot of these producers, directors, cinematographers, movie makers. They just don't understand that they can be said no to. I would imagine, and I'm going out on a limb here, that guys who are making a career choice and they think to themselves, well, I'm going to go into movie making. I'm going to be a producer and a director of my own movies because, boy, I'm going to be able to date actresses and I'll really get laid then. I imagine that a sizable percentage of these movie makers kind of think that. And, girls just don't say no. And when they do say no, they don't really mean it. And when they get angry at me for continuing to pester them and keep going after them after they say no, and if they get angry, their anger's not real. That is a very sexist attitude to have. Okay. And I talked about Groundhog Day, the movie, last show, and that it was really kind of a stalking movie on a grand scale. And I liked the movie Groundhog Day. And I couldn't, because of one of my many brain freezes, I couldn't remember who the actress was that was the object of being stalked. And she was Andie MacDowell. That was her first big role in Hollywood. Okay, another coffee break. Okay, other movies. Stalking often is presented as harmless or even endearing. Well, it's not. I would venture to say that if there's some way to measure this, 98% of women and girls out there don't want to be stalked. So guys, if any of my listeners are teenage guys out there, which probably are not, just don't do it. Try to be charming in other ways. Time marches on. Okay. Okay, stalking often is presented in these types of movies as harmless or endearing part of romantic courtship. Well, it's not really. Okay, You've Got Mail, the 1998 Tom Hanks movies. He was actually stalking Meg Ryan, and unknowingly at first when they start emailing each other. But anyway, it was a stalker movie, and of course, they live happily ever after. Okay, there's something about Mary. Boy, that is a horrible uh, stalking movie. And I kind of liked that movie as well. I mean, there's a lot of laughs in it. And Ben Stiller is the stalker, and Cameron Diaz was the object of his stalking. And there were three other really weird guys, but funny guys, that were also stalking her. Um, now, the Twilight movies, that's not exactly a stalking movie, but this vampire guy, and I haven't seen any of these Twilight movies either, so man, I'm just talking out my ass here about that one. But it was listed in a list of stalker movies. So this vampire guy, the teen, had to convince the girl. And anyway, enough of that. How much time do I have left? Not much. Okay. In Tennessee, legislation to ban transgender athletes from participating in girls' sports. That's a very contentious issue. Would likely result in harm to vulnerable students being marginalized. Vulnerable students, meaning the transgender. The only openly gay lawmaker in Tennessee's legislature said, and his name is Eddie Mannis, Mannis, said that banning transgender girls from participating in sports is marginalizing them. And that is true. And of course, the Christian right's up in arms about that, Republicans. Republican Governor Bill Lee said that trans athletes would, quote unquote, destroy girls' sports. Well, it won't. And we're not talking about very many of them anyway. Let's see. I wrote down a statistic here. The NCAA testosterone levels have to be below a certain point for an athlete to compete, and that's 10 micromoles per liter of blood. I mean, they have a way of measuring this, and okay. Please check the website transathlete.com if you want to figure out more about this topic. I talked about it about 4 or 5 shows ago, and please go out and buy this book also, The End of Gender by Dr. Deborah So. She goes into all of this, and she's not a flaming liberal. I mean, she is a liberal, but first and foremost, she's a scientist that goes wherever the science lead. I'm going to leave you all with this. Only about 1.8% of high school students identify as transgender. Now, out of that 1.8, well, how many of them want to play sports just so they can, win a medal or finish first in a high school track meet or something like that? It's exceedingly small. And my own personal opinion is transitioning should be done after puberty. Okay, and puberty is a concept that starts sometimes as young as 10 or 11. Most trans women who were born male and present themselves as female go through puberty at 13, 14 years old, and then their testosterone kicks in, which if they want to be a trans female, they have to have puberty blockers. I'm not going to start in on that right now. That's a topic for another show, which I've touched on in previous shows. Here we go. I've got to play the play out music now.
You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats.
I'm just looking at the green bar here. It was very weird doing this show without my headphones, so I couldn't hear any of the play-in, play-out music, announcements, and so on and so on, and I couldn't hear myself, what I'm saying. I am doing this as best I can without being able to hear myself. So that's it for this show. My audio engineer said he will come up Tuesday to see what's going on with this, why we couldn't, some things didn't work here. But he assures me that what I've been saying has been going out and recorded. Okay, I'm clicking stop recording now. So for all the YouTube people out there, so long.